Welcome back, everyone, to Chatooine. I'm your host, Star Wars Only, joined with Palpamemes. Today, we're talking about the late, great EA Star Wars. And I say late because it's been 10 years now. I believe it was May of 2013 that they announced that they were doing a Star Wars exclusive deal, Disney and EA. And now it's officially been 10 years. So, me and Palpamemes are going to talk about today mostly EA Star Wars and only EA Star Wars because it's a good time to look back. And out of everybody on Chatooine, me and you are the biggest gamers. I think you're probably the biggest gamer out of all of us.
I'm definitely, yeah. Goldman and Lunga, they're out of the loop, to say the least.
Yeah, and I don't even think they. Well, I know Lunga didn't play the recent Lego Star Wars game, and I haven't even made a review on that. That's nothing EA related, but God, that one was
Nothing
such a
E-Way, but
disappointment.
it was a mess.
It did
That
not
was a
help the
very disappointment.
situation. Oh
Yeah,
my God. The complete saga is still like the best Star Wars
hands
video game,
down.
or at least Lego game ever. I mean, that's such a good game. But yeah, no, we're going to talk about EA Star Wars today and kind of looking back on 10 years. And let's start at the beginning. Let's start 10 years ago when you first heard that EA and Star Wars were going to do a exclusivity deal that only EA could make Star Wars games for 10 years. Take us back to that, 2013. How did you feel? What was your reaction to this news?
So it's weird because I knew about the news, but I never knew about Battlefront 2015 until I got it for Christmas. I mean, I had heard about it, okay? I had heard that, okay, it's a game that's existing, and I was very, very excited. But for some reason, I never watched the trailers. I never really got into what's going to be coming in the game. Um, and 2013 was a weird time for EA. They were less hated. I think we can say they were less hated at that time. And so it sounded like a good deal. And in Disney's defense, that is a fine deal. I can see that working out, especially if they start getting Lucasfilm games going and they make a dedicated group within EA's studios to make Star Wars games consistently, like the plan was. Fantastic idea. But with a lot of Disney stuff, they have a lot of ideas. And do they come to fruition? No, most of the time, not. And that's basically what happened with EA.
Yeah, I mean, I was I want to almost say cautiously optimistic, but for me, I mean, 2013 is when they had, well, 2012 is when they sold Star Wars to
Right.
Disney, Lucasfilm. And in 2013, LucasArts was being shut down. And I was very young at the time. I was probably like 13, 14 years old, maybe even 12. No, I was born in 99, so I wasn't 12. But yeah, I was like 13 or 14 years old when all this was happening. And so like I was up to date with Star Wars stuff. I was still a very like passionate and active Star Wars fan, but around this time is when I really started to rediscover my love for Star Wars since like the prequels that came out and everything, and I was just slowly getting more and more involved. And I remember being a big gamer at this point in my life. I got Game Informer every month, every year. I would do like this Game of the Year award book that they would have at like schools and stuff, or I'd buy online. Like, and the notion around EA in 2013, it wasn't very good, honestly. Just kind of like today, 10 years later, it was
It wasn't as bad, I would say.
it
It
wasn't
was
as bad, but I
there,
think
but
I think they had still won like the worst company of the year award at least once, and people kind of thought of it as a
mm,
joke at the time. But EA was just known for being like a corporation kind of not developer, publisher, and all they had at the time, it seemed, was like a lot of their own IPs or sports, and now that they were adding Star Wars to it. But the relief with the situation was, okay, Disney's not making Star Wars video games. And that's good because Disney had openly said at the time, and this was under Iger too, mind you, that, oh, we're not very good at making video games. So that's why we're going to give this to somebody else. I think one of the first issues with EA Star Wars was that this deal was done under different management. The CEO, Andrew Wilson, I believe is his name, he came in later that year, but after the deal was already done. He didn't really like this deal, is what some people had been saying. It's not been confirmed or anything like that, but he openly said he wanted to focus on EA IP and like the Frostbite engine because you don't have to pay other developers to use their engine, so you just use Frostbite. And so it was just kind of a bad start in general with the management. LucasArts had just fallen earlier that year, and that's the whole reason Disney did this deal with EA because they weren't going to buy LucasArts or use LucasArts. And so I think going into this, there was a good amount of bad feeling all around about the video game aspect. But as time went on, man, like with EA Star Wars, there was a lot of excitement that was built, and that was mainly around Battlefront in 2015. I vividly, I can't believe you don't remember some of this stuff, man. I vividly remember the excitement around Star Wars video games are kind of coming back. This was the same time that The Force Awakens was being released. Like, this was the perfect time to release a Star Wars game. And I remember the trailer for it and how realistic it looked and how epic it was like Battlefield with a Star Wars skin on it. And that's all we expected from DICE. That's all we really wanted. And as we were like leading up to the game, there was just so much excitement around it and so much hype. And I at the time was feeling great about the game. And you said you didn't really hear about it until you played the game. So when you played the game, how did you feel about it in
Okay,
2015 playing Battlefront?
so let me backtrack. I remember that main trailer where they're on Hoth. I remember watching
Yeah.
that before it came out, right? That's all I knew about it. I knew that EA was getting Star Wars license and all that. I got Battlefront 2015 for on Christmas Day, whatever. Yeah, 2015. The level of just sheer anger and disappointment when I booted up that game. I think I had to download some stuff too because that's how it was back then. Because I had the disc version, and then you had to install some extra content.
Oh yeah.
The rage I felt when I came to the realization that there is no Clone Wars in this game. I mean, I was baffled. It was abysmal. I was genuinely baffled. It wasn't even like I was in denial. I just saw him like, where's the other era? Where's the other half to Battlefront? Because it would never cross my mind going into this that, oh, they wouldn't have the Clone Wars, right? But that's what they did because the game was rushed.
Yeah, it was rushed. That is something that I saw is that they were trying to get that release of 2015 for The
Force
Force Awakens
Awakens.
and
Yeah.
everything like that. And I mean, clearly they were rushed by only doing multiplayer and there's no campaign. There's not really any single player to write home about. It's just some certain modes that no one remembers. And it was all based during the original trilogy. What made it so cool was that they did the photorealism thing where they would get a prop and take so many pictures of it and put it in the game and all that stuff. Like that was amazing and it looked amazing. Like I look thinking about it and looking back, I think it looked better and might have even felt better than Battlefront 2 in a lot of ways. That came out a couple years later. But in terms of the graphics, it definitely felt like a huge upgrade
It was
in
it was
modern.
groundbreaking. Yeah, it
It
was.
was
I mean,
beautiful.
yeah.
What a time to be a gamer. But god damn it, man, there was nothing to do in that game.
That
I
shit
mean,
got so boring so fast. And that
it
was
was
my first reaction.
horrible.
It got boring. In like first day,
Mhm.
first 2 days, I'm like, this is it? 4 planets, 4 maps? Like, where's the rest
It
of the
was the
game?
lack of content because the gameplay honestly wasn't even that bad. I mean, I got to take you back. I remember playing the beta for this game. Like the
Mhm.
excitement for this game was huge, and like the beta was a huge thing. And there were all these like I think there was like a rifle that was like a special rifle, not one that you start off with.
Yeah,
It was like an ability, and you could knock out a fucking TIE fighter with that bad boy. Like that rifle was amazing. And to get heroes, you just found them on the field, and that was something else. Like that's one thing I think the new Battlefront didn't do as well is that like when you got a hero in that first one, it felt really special, and the way they interacted and clashed was really cool, and the presence that they had on the field, like gameplay wise, I felt like this game had a lot going for it. But then it was the lack of content. We got the Jakku map, which was huge at the time. Everybody was excited. We got Rogue Squad, or not Rogue Squadron, Rogue One, I think in 2016, which yet again was kind of like, oh my God, this is really cool. The expansions that they did helped doing Cloud City and Bespin and all that, but it just wasn't enough. It really wasn't enough. And not only was it not enough, it just felt like, well, this should have been in the game anyways. Like it wasn't all of it for free though. All the DLCs that they did
no,
we
the
had to pay for
expansions
those?
were all paid.
Okay, well, so yeah, that's even more of a fuck you. I was going to give them a lot of
Yeah.
benefit for being free. I was like, that makes sense. You didn't fully deliver the game.
Well,
Okay, now that I look back and I had to pay for all that, that's
let me
they fucked
verify.
up.
Let me Battlefront 2015 DLC cost.
I feel like I believe you that you had to pay
Yeah,
for
they
them.
had a season pass for it. Yeah, okay. I wanted to make
Yeah,
sure because I
okay.
Battlefront 2, they will talk about that when that time comes, but they were all free. So I kind of got confused. I was like, wait, was it free? No, it wasn't.
Well, and what's sad about Battlefront 2015 is that it's been 8 years, and it's not remembered at all because immediately when 2017 happened, you had a couple people go, I like the first one better, but they quickly died off because you had the new one. So this game in a 2 year time frame became completely obsolete. And that's really sad because at the time there was so much hype and excitement for it that it was almost like it could have not been bad. Like, how could you screw this up? Like, how could
They
you?
had the foundation was right for it, right? If they had given one more year of proper development time, I think this would have. I mean, this would have surpassed the Battlefront 2 we got. I mean, you know, developers have come out and talked about this game and said this very same things that we're saying, that they were rushed. They wanted to do more in this one. Same thing occurs for Battlefront 2, which again we'll get there when we get there. But looking back, because I was thinking about it a lot today, I'm like, man, just it felt so dry and almost dead. Even when the
Hmm.
DLCs were coming out, I remember getting them, and it just didn't feel right.
And it wasn't right. I mean, clearly, it is sad looking back, seeing how quickly this game came and went. And it was because of a lack of content. And honestly, I think the sentiment that people still have with both Battlefronts, because what comes after this is Battlefront 2, of course, but a lot of people have the sentiment of these old ones did it better. Why are these older games more fun to play than the new Battlefront 2015? It's sad that the 2015 one had less content than the 2005 one had. And I think a big sentiment that everyone had with both Battlefront installments, and especially after seeing this first one, the initial reaction was, why didn't you just remaster the old one? They could have just remastered the first Battlefront and Battlefront 2, put it into one game and say, hey, here's. And I'm sure there's some copyright issues with doing another game like that. These were different developers and everything. Who knows if, what is it, Pandemic, who made the first Battlefront games, were
Yeah,
like going to
Pandemic
be willing to
games.
do that. But, let's say they were able to. I mean, that's all you really had to do. And even if you couldn't, you could take a lot of what they did. It looked like they looked at the old Battlefront games and were like, no, we're not going to take any inspiration from these at all. And we're just going to kind of redo it in our own image because, we have so much more technology. We have the Frostbite engine. We're going to make this as photorealistic as possible and take on it from our own approach. And I think that's one of the issues that it has compared to the old Battlefront games is the old ones, you can play those for hours on end. They're fun. Like even to this day, it's been over 15 years, if not 15 years at the point, like where it's still fun to play to this day.
The mods
And
have the modding community for Battle not it's not there anymore, but the modding community for the 2005 Battlefront 2 was very, very active when I was around. Actually, when
yeah.
the Battlefront 2015 was out, and I was playing the old Battlefront 2 more than I was playing the 2015 one. I mean, wasn't that
Hmm.
something?
I started getting into the modding community with Battlefront 2005 a long time ago, and I loved it. It really did add to it. But even when I just had like an Xbox 360 as a kid, I would just replay the campaign and I would do Galactic Conquest all the time. I might do that tonight. Just get the bong, have a good night, and play some Battlefront 2 and take it back to the day. Like that's how good of a game. And the first two games, both of them, that's how good they were. I mean, they really were great. But let's move on to the Battlefront that came next. And side note, if you guys are watching, please leave a like and support the channel. And if you're watching this on the Star Wars only live stream, subscribe to the Chatooine one. We're not going to keep doing it on my channel into the
Yeah,
next
will
year,
be I
but
think Thanksgiving, right?
maybe
Thanksgiving, I want to say
Thanksgiving.
roughly around then.
Yeah, but definitely by the time the new year rolls around and we get into
Yeah,
2024, everything's going to be on Chatooine. We're going to come back on the podcast space and everything like that.
yeah.
So we're
Hey,
going to be more
give
mainstream.
me 10, 15 seconds. I will be right back. You go ahead and talk, but I'll be right back.
Okay, yeah, yeah. So next up is of course Battlefront 2. And I remember being in Star Wars Celebration in Orlando in 2017 for the panel for Battlefront 2. And it was a big deal at the time because they were having a lot of excitement come from the 2015 Battlefront. And this one, we just knew, okay, you guys are going to do it right. Okay, like we're going to have Clone Wars, we're going to have the sequel era. We're not just going to stick into this original trilogy era. And at the panel, there was a lot of excitement. I mean, seeing Darth Maul and Yoda in the trailer, and then Rey and Kylo Ren, and then there was Iden Versio. There was this new campaign where, oh, you get to play as the Empire. There was so much excitement in the room and online during this time. I mean, like I said, I was at Celebration, and it's different when you go to Celebration and you see these panels and how they're marketing it and how it feels immediately in the room with all these diehard fans. So I see the trailer and I see the lady who's playing Iden Versio literally like 2 rows in front of me, standing up and everything, and people giving her praise and whatnot, and just this feeling of excitement for Battlefront 2, that we're going to do this right this time. We've had many years to develop this, and we're just going to take what we did with Battlefront 1 and expand on it. And then Battlefront 2 came out. Now I'll talk about that in a second, but Palp Memes, when it came to the lead up of Battlefront 2 and the marketing and how you felt going into it before its release, take us back to that time. How did you feel leading up to this game?
This is the one where I can say that I vividly remember, right? From I mean, because a lot of people who've known me for a long time, I had a Battlefront YouTube channel. I made that. I don't remember how far into the game, but Battlefront 2. But the channel did fairly well, and I got pretty close to a lot of the workers on the game. Spoke to a lot of them, still speak to them every so often, and there's a lot of interesting things on the back end with the history of it. Um, but I remember when that original teaser trailer got leaked. It was the leak the night before whatever the game event, the EA game event, I think. And yeah, it was is Yoda and Darth Maul up there, and
Yeah, it was leaked before the celebration panel that they did
that's what
for
it
it.
was. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was such a I mean, the feeling of optimism, right? That's what I got personally. This was
Yeah.
before The Last Jedi came out, so this is the best time to be a Star Wars fan, right?
It was peak time now that you think about it. Like, even, we say 2017 is a downfall, but that's because of what happened in November and December, which was such a crazy 1-2 punch of having this game as a disappointment and then The Last Jedi as a disappointment. Even though both of them have massive audiences, the excitement that everything had, though, completely came to a stop. And, say what you will about The Last Jedi, this game kind of set it up, and part of it was what happened before the game. I mean, it was all over the national news and the gaming sphere, the loot box microtransaction controversy that
It
EA pulled.
remains the most downvoted comment in any Reddit comment
Yeah,
ever
yeah,
with,
you
I
got you
think,
got to put 60 hours in. 60 hours in to get Darth Vader.
700,000 downvotes. 600,000 downvotes
That's
from the
insane.
old community manager saying, oh, feeling of pride and accomplishment
Uh-huh,
was the term.
uh-huh.
You guys remember that? I remember that.
I remember.
Um,
I love to
what
remember that.
what were they thinking? Because personally, and we'll get into this more, I love Battlefront 2. It's not
I
without
know
its
you
flaws.
do. I
I
know you do.
love Battlefront 2. Fucking EA had to stick their foot in the game's ass and bring microtransactions. They made it to where you had to spend how many hours to unlock Vader? Was it like
Like
60
60 to
hours?
80 hours. I mean, like,
What
this
were
was a
they
huge
smoking?
thing. But you know what's insane about it too? Is at the time it was so foreign. It was so, how fucking dare you? But now when you look back, I think of games like Fortnite, Apex Legends, Overwatch.
Games that are
That's where they make.
free.
Yeah, there you go. I was say they make all their money through microtransactions, but you got me there. They're free. And if this, first of all, there's no way they would have made this game free. But if you think about it, how big of a game would this have been if it had been for free? You don't have to put 60 hours in to get Darth Vader, but the star cards and the skins and all that stuff, like, I could see it being a profitable
How about just the heroes and the troopers and the reinforcements, right? Have that behind a battle pass system. Make the game free. You can pay
Well,
$3
and that's
for a
another
Vader
issue I
skin, you
had with
know?
it. The customization that you had in the first game wasn't really there for the second one. Where you can turn your rebel character into like different alien species and whatnot. I don't think it's, at least to my knowledge, the second one doesn't have as much of that as the first one did. Am I
Oh,
right?
it has well, I don't let me verify. Are you talking when the game launched or the game as is now? Because those are
Uh,
two completely different games.
I mean, that's true. So I'm assuming when the game launched, you couldn't do that, but
Mm,
nowadays you
I
can.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. There were no clone trooper variants. You're right. Yeah, no, it had
Yeah.
virtually no customization.
Which I guess is okay at the end of the day. To prep for this show, I played a good amount of Battlefront 2 2017 last night. And almost any time I go back to play that game, I shit you not, 90% of the time I get pissed. Because within like an hour of playing, I'm like, this is boring. We're just going from one ship to the other. I'm getting wrecked, or it takes forever. But last night, I'll admit, I had a good time. There's a lot of cool maps. We played on Tatooine as like the rebels in the Empire. We played on Yavin 4 as the same era. And then I think we played as the Clone Wars era, the Separatists and the Republic on Kashyyyk, and it's better than I remembered for sure. But I think one of my big issues with this game, and it's hard because the timeline of this game is so complex with what happened with it and how long things have been going on with it. Because when it launched, we had the nightmare of the loot boxes, and Disney had to get in, and EA had to pull the plug on that, and then there was the initial reaction to it when it was launched, and then people kind of checked out of the game, but there was still a community around it, and the DLCs is what really kept it active and alive. And I noticed it was mostly like younger online Star Wars fan gamers who are big fans of the prequel era who were really pushing for more content and stuff like
You know
that.
why though, right?
Pray tell.
Well, the developers are huge prequel fans, a lot of them, and they started with the Last Jedi DLC, and then they did the Solo DLC, right? And
Yeah.
so there wasn't much hype there. There wasn't a whole lot of there wasn't a fan base.
Both of those were kind of meh.
Though, okay, Last Jedi was pretty great, but that was because it was content that was supposed to be in the game at launch, right? And then they just carried it over to a DLC, waited for the movie to come out and all that, which fine, whatever, that happens. But then after they announced the community started growing after the Solo DLC, and people started ramping up, hey, we want Clone Wars, we want clone skins, we want Anakin, we want Obi-Wan, Grievous. The biggest change that this game had was the EA Play announcement. Dennis Brandval, the game director, got up on stage and said, yes, we're doing Geonosis. We're doing Obi-Wan, Anakin, Grievous, Dooku. We're doing skins. There was something else. Oh, and they're doing Supremacy, which is capture the command post, basically. That was the turning point for the game. That was the time, because I've been in the community long before this happened. So I saw the whole uprise, right? That was the turning tide, right? The problem, the whole team was a skeleton crew, right? Reference, I know. The effort and work that these developers put in, the amount of overtime outside, not even overtime, they weren't even getting paid for it, that these people did. I knew a guy who, him and a community manager stayed, just the developer. I knew this. He stayed hours upon hours after his shift was done just to work on the commandos, the Republic commandos, right? The amount of passion that these guys had, right? Despite just being a very tiny team, which I don't have the exact number, but it's small. You got to give them props. But where I get to that with the skeleton crew, it took so long for this content to release, and it was spaced out over a month upon a year, time frame.
Well,
And that
wasn't
right
there a
there was
time
the
that they
biggest killer.
announced that all of the timeline that they had was being delayed?
Oh, dude, delays. It became
Okay,
a
yeah.
meme in the community.
Yeah. I kind of remember the joke aspect of that, and I think that's, you know, we can never doubt a developer's passion for a game or anything. It's kind of clear that yet again EA screwed this up, and not entirely DICE. They should have had more time to work on this game for sure. But even from a quality of the game standpoint, one of the biggest sticking points, and one of the things that I still agree with to this day and remember, that campaign was horrible. That campaign is
What a
not
letdown,
memorable.
you know.
That campaign, that this is where you get into those arguments of Battlefront 2 2005 was better than 2017. Everyone and their mother remembers the 2005 campaign. It's a joke now. It's like, we can never look her in the eye. And I remember the Night of Felucia and all that. Like it's fucking great, bro. You got to storm the Jedi Temple the night of Order 66, become Anakin, and fuck up some Jedi. Like
I
it
will
was a
say, I have to give him props with the Luke episode, or I'm sorry, the Luke camp mission. because that
No,
is the
you
best
cannot.
interpretation.
No,
Hold
you
on, hold on,
cannot.
hold on, hold on. That is the best representation of Luke Skywalker we have ever gotten under Disney.
Okay, I can understand that and conceding that point, but that was in a mission where you are Luke
You
Skywalker. The only
fight
time I
bugs.
think the only time you get a fucking lightsaber is you're swinging at fucking bugs. So no, it was not a good mission. It was boring. The whole campaign was boring. The most memorable aspect of that campaign is Luke fighting bugs and Kylo Ren having a fucking shroom trip in the middle of like the Star Destroyer that he was on. I don't even
I don't
vaguely
even
remember
remember
what
that.
I don't even
I
remember
don't
what that
remember
mission was
that.
about. I just remember him like flying and being like, "What the fuck is happening?" That campaign marketed itself as you're gonna fight as the bad guys, the empires. My dumbass was such a Star Wars fan. You guys don't understand how ingrained I was in this shit back in the day, bro. I read the book Inferno Squadron, I think is what it's called, and it was the prequel to Battlefront 2. I knew everything about these characters going into the fucking game. And then you start out the game as you do like two missions as the Empire, and you immediately join the fucking rebellion. It is the same shit over. The campaign was horrible. I have yet to this day played the DLC for the campaign because I don't give a fuck about what it is or what happened to it or anything like that. That's the thing that I think a lot of developers and gamers and well, people who work in the industry kind of forgot about in the 2010s is that, believe it or not, we do like campaigns. I saw this a lot with Call of Duty. One of the reasons I, as someone who checked out of Call of Duty after like Black Ops 2, I think the last Call of Duty game I bought and played and did the campaign for was like Ghost. Once the campaign started going away and becoming trash, I didn't give a fuck. Not everybody just wants to play online. Same thing with like GTA 5. I don't play online at all. I play the single player story mode as Franklin, Michael, and Trevor. I love that shit. People who are kind of old man like in the mind, like me, like that shit. And Battlefront 2's campaign had no replayability to it. And for the single player aspect of it as well, there's no galactic conquest like there was for the 2005 version. And that shit's addicting. You can play as four different armies pretty much. You can play as the Republic, the Separatists, the Empire, the Rebellion. You couldn't add that to the new game and then add the First Order and then the fucking New Republic. Like, so much opportunity. And I feel like this game really underdelivered. And I will say, even as it stands today, is it a better game than it was when it released? Absolutely. Is it as good as it should have been? Not even close.
I agree with that. So one of the more controversial things I said back in the Battlefront days in the community was that they need to pause this game. They need to start working on a Battlefront 3 because the foundation of the game was kind of broken in a lot of ways. I
Mm-hmm.
thought the gameplay was fine in it. The star cards were fine. The battle point system was not good because it just
And see,
caused so many
I
issues.
push back on a lot of that. I hate the star card system because I'm not one of these fucking prestige 19 motherfuckers that play. Like even last night, I get frustrated. Like I shoot a guy and he doesn't die because he's got all his star cards maxed. He takes one shot at me and I'm fucking
Yeah,
ash,
it
bro.
makes
Like
sense for a free to play game where like Fortnite, right? And that's the problem.
no,
It was
but it doesn't make sense. There shouldn't be, if we're doing something like that where you got max star cards, you need to play against other people who are maxed out and like
well, the
competitive or
problem
something
with
like
that
that.
is there's not enough people playing right now to
Well,
get
then
enough
take away the
lobbies where you
fucking
can do
star
that.
cards. So, when
It's
you play Call
you're
of
just
Duty, there's
it's
very
not
few things you can add to it to give
it's
you a. You can get a special gun that is the trick of the day, or you put on like flight jacket where grenades don't kill you as fast. But for the most part, everyone and their goddamn grandma could pick up Call of Duty and play it and be fine.
I will
Same
say
thing
that's what I
that.
think the old Modern Warfare games did best is it was very simple at its core and
Yes,
foundation.
yes,
But if you wanted to
and
get the what was it the fall skin was my favorite or the blue or red tiger, they kept it simple. And now these new stupid ass Call of Duty games, which don't get me started on the third one, I'm so glad I didn't buy it because shit. It's just too much. There's too much going on. There's too much customization. There's too many perks you can do, or what would be star cards for Call of Duty, or the attachments and stuff.
Yeah,
So I
but
see where you're coming from with that.
I think that all translates to Battlefront 2017 because I think it has the same issue. Like these star cards, make the game not really enjoyable for people like me. I think this game, and this is what worked around the first ones that came out, is you just pick it up and play. There's not a lot of customization you can do to these people. And if you had done multiplayer the way they did it in Battlefront 2 and Battlefront 1 under EA, the multiplayer should have been a little bit more easy for everybody. And I'm not saying easy as in like, oh, you got to dumb it down for everybody, but the star cards and everything, it adds an element of this where it's like, no, you got to be like playing 2 to 3 hours a day to get good, and you can fuck up everybody else. Like you have to put a lot of
I
time into this to get these perks. Where it should be, you don't have any of these star cards. You just pick up a fucking gun, and if you're good, you kill people, and if you're not, you get killed. And
I'm
it's
gonna
simple
push
for
back on
everybody
that
to
a little
do.
bit. I think you're overestimating how much help the star cards do. Yes, there are some that are really, really good, like some health boosting ones and all that, but I don't think it's as bad as you're saying, where like a newbie would come in and just get absolutely wrecked. Right?
Well, you're not a newbie.
Maybe you're just bad at the game. I don't know.
No, but I'm not bad. I mean, I know when I'm bad at a game, and this game's not hard to be bad at. It's not that hard. It's an easy game, but a lot of it, as someone who has no star cards or shit like that to really write home about, it's fucking hard. It's fucking hard. Like if you have a guy with like 3 max star cards against a guy who has none of them even like upgraded, the guy with the few star card shit's gonna get fucked. Like 9 times out of 10, there'll be shit where it's like I just shot him in the face with a shotgun, and you're telling me he's not dead, but he shoots me one time with his little fucking blaster, and my whole squad has just died. And and it's a big thing with the heroes and the villains. Like you max out their shit, fucking what
It's
do you
Darth
do to
Vader,
them?
man. Darth
No,
Vader's
but
the
what?
worst.
Yeah, what do you do to him? It's like I
The
know I
dude gets like
can't
what,
kill them.
1,000 health points with the max star card. That's too
Yeah,
much.
it's fucking ridiculous. But overall, when I think of Battlefront 2 2017, I still think of it as a disappointment. Like honestly, I look back and I'm like, man, like this game really didn't deliver, and it hurt even more than the first one because this was them saying that they would do it right. And I
It
know
was
they
supposed to be the one, right? And
exactly.
you saw the vision, right? We see what they were gonna do, what it could be. Whereas with Battlefront 2015, it released and we are like, well, screw this game, right? There's nothing there to it. What are they gonna release? A Clone Wars DLC? No. The
Yeah.
foundation was really bad in Battlefront 2015, whereas two, it had some core vision with it that people liked.
Yeah, and I think looking back, it's kind of like an 0-2 situation for me with EA of like this is the second game in a row you've given us. We're now 4 years into your deal, and you've given us 2 games that are both disappointing and not worthy of really being in the Star Wars name for a lot of people. Um,
One thing where we're closing this up, I'm assuming.
yeah, we'll
One
move on
thing
to
that I
Fallen
want
Order
to point
next.
out that a lot of, some stuff is public, some stuff I've talked with privately with people. Um, fuck you, EA. They pulled the plug on Battlefront 2 right as in the middle of like the developers didn't realize this was going to even happen. Um, they were working on Ventress, they were working on Ahsoka, they were working on Mustafar. They had a lot of plans for future DLC that was in the works, that was being made right at that moment.
Yeah,
And then
but
they
I
pulled the
mean,
plug right at COVID.
they
And
didn't even have Mace Windu or Jango Fett in the game. They put in BB-8 and
okay,
the evil one.
let me let
There's
me
an
push back on
Ewok
that, okay? Because
as a character you can
okay,
unlock if you get enough
Star
points.
Wars
Like
only. Just
that stuff is stupid. I'm
hold
sorry,
on.
it's fucking stupid.
One, let's talk about the soccer ball heroes. All right, they're unique and they're simple and they're easy to implement. Okay, and what I mean by that is yes, they are unique. They're not another blaster hero. They're not another lightsaber hero. They're actually unique. I don't play them, but a lot of my friends, they're like their favorites because once you get good at them, they can be a killer. Point number two, they're easy to make, right? They already had the foundation of their animations within the game due to the droidicas, right? They didn't spend a whole lot of time to make them, right? There's not a whole lot of rigging you need to do. There's not a lot of new animations you need to do, anything complex like a dual saber lightsaber hero like Ahsoka. So it's not like,
It's the
though they
fact
chose.
that you did make them though. Like none of
No,
this
it's
is
not,
making it
because
go.
it's not, oh, they made them over Ahsoka. They were working on Ahsoka, right? They were
But we
working on
never
these
got
characters.
Ahsoka. We never got Mace Windu.
I'm
We never
not
got Jango
saying
Fett.
that. I am saying you could have not made those heroes, and you still wouldn't have gotten Ahsoka. You still wouldn't have gotten Mace Windu. You still wouldn't have gotten them all of them,
Yeah,
right?
but it feels more of a slap in the face to get those heroes and
Yeah,
not get
but they're
Ahsoka, not
unique.
get Mace Windu.
There's something different. They're unique, right?
Yeah, but just them being unique, they could have put a fucking Gungan in there, and it would have been unique. It still would have been shit. You know, like these were
Yes. I
corn.
mean, I
No,
don't.
no one has ever uttered the words. I can't wait to play BB-8 tonight on Battlefront 2. It's never been said.
Have
Never
you
in the
ever fought
history of
against a
man.
max level BB-8 or BB-9E? They're terrifying.
No, because no
It
one
is
plays the
something
game.
unique.
No
I
one
see.
plays
Okay,
the
maybe
game
it's
anymore.
PC because PC is easier to use the mouse. I see them all the time, and they are a fucking bitch to take down, right? But you
Yeah.
have to get good at them to use it. You have to be skilled with it, and that's why I really like
Oh,
them.
but that goes back. Yeah, you want to have fun with the game. You got to get good, son. You got to put
Oh,
in
come
time to
on.
these
There's a few
star
little cool
cards.
heroes that you wouldn't have used anyway, so it doesn't matter. But when
No
you
one
go up
would have
against
used
one,
them.
it's fun. It's when you go up against one,
You
it's
know,
unique.
like the
have to change
5
your
people
strategy.
on planet Earth who have ever used these little BB-8
The
heroes.
5 people that use it make the game a very unique experience. All right.
Yeah, it's like, God, man, this game sucks. So, oh, is that BB fucking 8? Like, what's he doing rolling around here?
We got someone
No.
right here. Craig's corner, my boy Craig, right here. He's one of those fuckers that is good with BB-8, and it's impossible to defeat him, right? It makes it something new because it's not something everyone even wants to use. But when you do see them, you're like, oh shit, this person is probably good. It's fun, all right? And again, I go back to my point. They didn't take a whole lot of development time to do. You didn't even have any voice lines for them to do. You have to get voice actors in, right? And so I don't think it's fair to say they chose BB-8 over Ahsoka because that's not the case. It's completely different.
It's
Very,
not saying
very
they
different.
chose it. It's just saying,
I know.
we didn't get this, but hey, at least we got the little fucker from The Last Jedi. Don't even know the guy's name. And you get to, if you get a certain amount of points as the rebels, you can play as a Wookiee or this cool chick with a jetpack, or
I will say
you can play a Ewok. Do you remember them?
the reinforcements that we should have gotten. Now, I don't know. I have a suspicion these were in development, but I cannot confirm that. Is for the Republic and the CIA, a Jedi Temple Guard and a Magna Guard. That is the perfect set of reinforcement because they perfectly counter each other. There's no balancing issue there. They're the same freaking reinforcement. Just one's got a staff, one's got a double-bladed lightsaber.
All right. So we should give thumbs up and thumbs down for the 2 games that we went through. You can't see my thumbs, but I'm gonna do double thumbs down on Battlefront 2015 and Battlefront 2017, and then we'll see how many thumbs up we got by the end of the game list. So Battlefront 1 and Battlefront 2 under EA, thumbs up, thumbs down on both of them.
One, hold on. No, we gotta separate them. Thumbs down for one.
Yeah.
50-50.
No, it's a thumbs up or it's a thumbs down. You don't get
because that game like kind of got me into that game is the reason I am here right now. Okay.
There you go. So it's 1-1 for you and it's 0-2 for me.
But I will say I play it now. The modding community is very, very active in it, and it's nothing crazy. But even without the mods, I recently got back into playing with my friends. It's even the base game. I still thoroughly enjoy it. I saw it. Even without that, I give it a thumbs up. I really love the game.
I played it last night, and I'm surprised I had a good time with it. I'm going to try to keep playing it, and then I'll definitely play the 2005 version as well, so I can remember what the really good version of it is. So let's move on to the third game under EA Star Wars, and that is Jedi Fallen Order, releasing in 2019. This game was unique because I remember the marketing for it was horrible. They announced it at some random EA event where the white guy in the crowd is just like, yeah, there's a new Star Wars game we're making. It's called Jedi Fallen Order. And everyone was like, it
was
okay.
He's the writer. Like they didn't have anyone else. He was their freaking writer.
And what's funny is I even saw him at a bar in 2020, I think, or was it 2020? No, it was 2019. I think whatever celebration that was in Chicago that I
It
had a
was
great time
19.
at. Yeah, so that one because yeah, I was there for the Jedi Fallen Order panel in 2019, and that night I saw him at the bar and walking by people, and I was like, God, I want to say something to that man so bad, but like he was so funny to me and so meme like. I was like, I don't want to disturb him in his like um
Well, if
social
it helps, the
place.
man is actually very respected and known in the gaming community. He's
Oh yeah,
probably like
yeah.
he's pretty well known, guys. He's not just some rando they
Well,
picked
especially
up
with
from
him
the
working with
development
like
team.
Respawn and everything. Like Respawn's a
Oh
great
yeah,
company and team, and I
yeah.
think them being a great developer is why this game was so good. And when this game came out, and even the marketing after that odd reveal, this was a very interesting game for EA Star Wars because one of the reasons they had moved away from the single player stuff and they shut down a company called Visceral and got rid of that ragtag game that we probably don't have enough time to talk about, but that's one of the reasons a lot of people had issues with EA when they shut that developer down and that game. They said we don't really feel like a lot of gamers are interested in single player story given games anymore. It's all about multiplayer now. And then they come out with Jedi Fallen Order, which is about a Jedi after Order 66 named Cal Kestis. It is a single player story driven game. And everyone loved it. And the copies for this sold, it completely exceeded expectations. They sold over 10 million copies. I mean, I think the only cons with this game is that there isn't a lot of replayability to it. I mean, I maybe have gone back and replayed the game two or three times over the course of what's now been 3 or 4 years. But for the most part, it doesn't have a lot of fun replayability to it. But go ahead.
This game is 5 years old to this day. It released on November 15th, 2019.
No, I'd be 4 years old to this day, but you're right. It is 4 years. Today's the
Oh, I'm
anniversary.
special, my bad.
No, it's okay.
Wait
Me
a minute.
too. Longa drives us on the short bus to school
It's been a
every
long
day.
day, all right.
But yeah, no, 4 years to the day this game came out, and and this was a good time for Star Wars. Like we just talked about how 2017, when you have the negative marketing with 2017's Battlefront and then the Last Jedi. I mean, that really did a damage to the franchise as a whole, with really summarizing that entire 10-year period of
Well,
Disney and EA Star Wars from the new movies to the new games and all that stuff. But this time was a good time because we got Jedi Fallen Order. I think the same day, if not, around the same month, we got The Mandalorian season one. And then we got Rise of Skywalker at the end of 2019. And this really started everything off because it was a new game. And looking back, this was a great time to be a Star Wars fan. Even as someone who was
don't forget Galaxy's
unhappy.
Edge.
Well, yeah, but that's such a small. But I mean, no, but you're right though. That did help with the overall aspect of Star Wars and where it was at as a franchise and a company. It was one of the peak times. The closest thing to it would be 2016 and 2015. Even though this time was a little less so, it was us being used to what we had under Disney and EA, and this was a good setup for the Mandalorian and The Rise of Skywalker, and this really hit it out of the park. I thoroughly, to this day, really enjoy Jedi Fallen Order. I think it's the best EA Star Wars game that they have made, and it's one of the best single player games for me in the past 10 years because there's someone who's gotten older and doesn't have a lot of time for video games. This is one of those that I'm always going to remember playing and always have a good time with it. And almost anyone and everyone I've known who's played it loves this game. So how do you feel about Fallen Order looking back?
I loved it. I mean, it's one of those games where you play it once and you really don't have any reason to play it again, but that's not necessarily a problem. It's like I thought the story was phenomenal, right? It was a great story. It was very
Yeah.
grounded. And we'll get to Fallen Order 2, but one of the reasons why I prefer this game over Fallen Order 2 is because of that grounded story. It felt so together, right? Um and you could really feel yourself in Cal Kestis in that sense. Um the customization wasn't there, but you didn't need it. The story is the best part about this game, and the planet diversity was really, really good. And it introduced Ilum and Starkiller Base, which I thought was a unique idea. Um, man, I look back, I'm already nostalgic for it thinking about it. The music is great in
Yeah.
it. The even just the intro to the game, even the menu screen, you look back and I'm like, man, this was a damn good game. I mean, I don't have really any complaints about it.
Yeah, there's small complaints with it, I guess, that people have had, but it's so good that it's overwhelming. Where it's like there's really nothing bad to say about the game. I wish there was more to do. I wish they had a
Mhm.
little more to offer. But for what this game is and for what it delivers, it is an out of the park game, and it really did exceed all expectations. So for me, thumbs up or thumbs down. This is a big thumbs up for EA Star Wars.
Yeah, this game came out at the perfect time too. I remember we had a podcast episode a long time ago where we said, "What's the best year for Star Wars?" And I said 2019, right? And this game was one of the biggest reasons for that. And it also felt like, it's kind of interesting, kind of rhymes with Mandalorian because just like Mandalorian, it felt like, okay, this is a new tide, right? We're turning a new page, right?
Yeah,
This is a new
yeah.
start for Star Wars, right? Both with EA, this is a new start for EA. They've learned their lesson, right? Um, both with EA and Battlefront 2 was still going on through this time and stuff. Which man, I wanted a Fallen Order DLC. How cool would that be to have Cal Kestis and Trilla as a hero in Star Wars Battlefront 2? Would have been
Oh
great. And
yeah.
there's mods where they take literally just the models from Fallen Order and put them in Battlefront. They even have these cool custom animations. Like they made an ability for Cal where he actually has a stim ability and he has a whole custom animation and everything.
Hmm.
And then so it's like it's crazy how the mods for Battlefront they're actually unique. They have custom abilities and stuff made. That the modding has gotten crazy for it, but I kind of went on a tangent there. Two thumbs up for me. It came out at the right time. It was a game that Star Wars needed at the time. It was a start of the single player games, and it set a very good precedent and foundation for Star Wars games.
Yeah, and I agree. For the time, it was perfect. It was just what EA Star Wars needed to show, hey, we can make something good. And one of the
Yeah,
big
you know
reasons I
how they
think
did that, right?
they laid off, yes.
They just let them do their thing. It's kind of
Yeah.
backwards because they had no hope in this game. They thought this game was going to bomb, right? Because like you said earlier, and it's kind of funny. It's like maybe they should just keep doing this. Just lay off, let developers do their thing, fund their project, work with their project managers to make sure everything's getting out on time, and just let them do their thing.
Well, and the last three Star Wars games that came out from EA seems like that's what they did. They kind of chilled with it, and that leads us into our next one. And this comes from EA Motive, I believe, and this is Star Wars Squadrons. This came out in 2020. It was a very unique game because they said while they were doing Battlefront 2, they just kind of had this idea of like, oh, this would be a fun little passion project. And it was a smaller scale game. It's like a flight simulator basically. There's a campaign to it and there's multiplayer online. When this was announced, when we were leading up to this and you knew what this was, how did you feel about Squadrons?
Didn't really care for it. This is at the peak of Battlefront 2, I want to say, when the announcement came. I never actually played Squadrons. However, now that I have a VR headset, I have heard from some close friends who have a VR headset plus one of those actual joysticks for the flight simulator games. They say it's like the most realistic Star Wars experience you can get. I never played the game though. I was gonna wait to get one of
Really?
those joysticks. I never played it. I
Oh
was too
wow.
occupied with Battlefront 2, and then once they canceled Battlefront, I had no desire to buy it. I just was done. I was really upset, and the game died off so quickly. Playing on PC, it'd be like impossible to find a match. It came and went.
Yeah, and that's my experience is different because I mean my channel was pretty active around this time, and I think you guys can even go back and look at when this game was releasing. I was covering it, and I was actually pretty enthusiastic about this because I was like, look, they're telling us it's $40, so it's a cheap game, it's a small scale game, and it is something just to kind of put out there. And I liked the idea and the premise, and I thought it looked cool and it looked fine. Then it came out, and I played it. Campaign yet again very forgettable, not very good. And playing it, I noticed, it's got its moments and it's kind of pretty and there's some fun times, but it's a little complex and it's like a niche thing. Lunga summarized this well back when this game came out, and this is funny enough. Squadrons is one of the first episodes of Chatooine that we ever did. I think it was like our second or third one, and Lunga had said, this is for like nerd video games on truck simulations and all that stuff. that's kind of what this game was. It was a very niche game for a very niche community that had a Star Wars skin over it. And I remember Eckhart's Ladder was doing a lot of things with like tournaments and stuff like that, and a lot of people on his side of the Star Wars community helped keep the game alive. But after 6 months, this game completely dropped off the radar. It was very forgettable, and I don't think there's really much to even say about this game because of how small it was. And so it's weird when you look at the EA Star Wars legacy, because this is one of those games that you look at it and like, do I really give you guys any credit for this? Because I mean, what credit is really due? I mean, I guess to the people who like it, there is, but for the most part, this was a forget it game. And this was just something to throw out there, make a little money, and not put too much of a budget into. And I'm sure they made money from this. I'm sure it did well, but for the most part, I mean, this game wasn't received all that well. So for a thumbs up and or a thumbs down on this game, I hate to give it a thumbs down because I think out of all of them that I would give a thumbs down, this deserves it the least because I appreciate what it was trying to do and then the time that it came out. But because I don't think it was very good, because it wasn't very memorable, because this has been done before but better, even without the Star Wars skin on it, I think I'm going to give Squadrons a thumbs down. As someone who played it or who didn't play it, do you even feel like you should give it a thumbs up or thumbs down? How would
I
you
mean,
what do you think about this when it comes to EA's legacy? Like, do you give them credit for this or do you take away with this?
it's weird because this is the least impactful game in EA Star Wars history. It
Yeah.
doesn't have consequences, right? There weren't bad things, but it didn't have anything like Jedi Fallen Order had, which is like, oh man, you guys did good. It was kind of just a nothing burger. It was just a nothing game. I don't know. Again, it wouldn't be fair for me to give it a thumbs up or down because I haven't played it yet, but
Yeah.
it was just kind of nothing. And I'm okay with them doing like small scaled games like this to pass the time until the next big game releases. Um, it just didn't really do much for me. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think that's the sentiment of almost everybody. This next and last game that they've done, for some reason, is a game I have not played yet. That's Jedi Survivor. It's the sequel to Jedi Fallen Order with Cal Kestis returning, and I know almost nothing about this game. I mean, I remember the trailers for it and everything, and I kind of I know there's like a High Republic Jedi that comes back and everything. All I can say with this game is that it seems like the reception for it is similar to Jedi Fallen Order, where this is a good game, some would say a great game, and it is another knock it out of the park game for EA Star Wars. It's another good thing for the EA Star Wars legacy. And I've never really seen any complaints about this game online. I've seen nothing but good reviews and happy reactions. And even amongst the diehard Star Wars community, a lot of people seem to really like and enjoy this game. Falcon means you played this game as someone who played it as opposed to the last one. We're switching roles here. How do you feel about this game?
I've played through this game, I think 3 or maybe 4 times already, and that
Damn.
was within, like, a couple-month period. I just kept replaying it. I had a lot more free time than I do now. I really, really love this game. It expands on the best aspects of Jedi, Fallen Order, the lightsaber customization, the customization of Cal Kestis as is. Um, the story grew a lot, and while I still prefer the story of the first game, because again, like I said, it's more grounded, the story of this new one it reached new highs and it was a very, very fun game. And that's the one thing I got to say about it. It is fun from start to finish, right? And that's probably the reason why I've replayed it so often. I don't replay games, especially single player games. I don't replay games. That's something I rarely do. But with the new game plus options, it just makes it that much more fun. You know, once you get everything leveled up and unlocked and stuff, and you can basically just take everyone out with ease. You just go get to experience the story again without having to worry about the action part of it. Um, I think the thing it lacks most is planet diversity. I thought the planets were a downgrade from Fallen Order. Fallen Order had a nice diverse set of planets. This one has Coruscant in it, but it's in some
Oh wow.
underground base in Coruscant. Maybe it's above ground. I can't remember. And there's nothing to do. It doesn't look anything like Coruscant, and it's just
Oh.
there's nothing to do on there. And so that felt underwhelming, right? But they did have the Kobo Sky, which if you do play it, which you should play it, that was one of the best missions. They incorporated the High Republic in a very, very well way where it didn't take you out of the game. I remember seeing a lot of complaints from specific people in the Star Wars community. I won't name names, mad about how High Republic's being forced into this, which I don't even know what that means. How can you force a Star Wars story in another Star? That doesn't make any sense. But it's not forced in there. It flows naturally. It works for the story that the game needed to tell. And this game does something well that Star Wars rarely does well, which is romance. So more props to them for Cal Kestis and Marin. You actually kind of care for them as a couple, and you actually feel like they should be together, and it's not some crazy psychotic relationship. Um, Thumbs up for me. Obviously, it was a great sequel, and I can't wait for the third one.
I don't know if I'm allowed to give it a thumbs up or thumbs down as someone who didn't play it, but I feel like because I know it's relatively the exact same as Fallen Order, I'm going to give it a default thumbs up just because I feel like that's what's fair with this game. So
Well, they
at
didn't do
least
anything to keep you from buying the game, right? They didn't do some loot
no, no,
box.
I am
So
going to
it gets
play
bad.
this game. Yeah, I'm going to play this game, and I know I'm going to enjoy it. I just for so well, it's also is it only on the next generation consoles?
Yes.
Okay, then that's probably exactly and the only reason I did not play the game is I have an Xbox Series S X. It was like the upgraded Xbox One, like the Pro Series thing that they did. I
You
can't remember what it's
should
called.
be able to. I don't know. But while we're on consoles, I want to say one more thing that the game was horrible at that was actually very, very frustrating is it was not optimized for the PC. Or for computer. I have
Hmm.
a very, very good computer. Like I've spent a lot of money on my computer and I was getting like 30, 25, 20 frames per second consistently. And
Damn.
it was just so poorly optimized. They fixed it throughout. And that's another reason why I replayed it again is because they kind of fixed a lot of those issues, but still those issues got me up to like 45 FPS, which is fine. It's playable. And it's not like it's like, oh, well, console players only get 30. It's like when I spend as much money as I do on a PC, I expect a game to run well on it, right? And so when it's not, it's very, very frustrating. But other than that, it's a good game.
You fucking PC elitist in here.
Oh, we're
Yeah, 30
yeah,
FPS. I'm
PC
locked in
problem.
at that shit, all right? Sorry.
We
Um,
spend the money, right, to get that. So it's like when you don't get it just because of optimization issues on their end, it's frustrating. It's like, come on.
yeah, well, I spend $500 because it's cheap and it's easy and you just plug it in and the thing fucking works.
Boomer
Um,
only can't break it. He can't mess it up.
no, no, I need it nice and simple. Plug and play, please. So you're looking at how many games do they have? One,
Or
two, three, four, five. Five, if we're including Squadrons. Two Battlefronts, two Fallen Orders,
oh yeah.
or two Jedi games, and then Squadrons. So for me, it looks like it's two thumbs up, three thumbs down. They're two and three on my scorecard. So that means they're down one. Um, you didn't give one for Squadrons, so it looks like you're 3-1, right? Because the only negative one you
Yeah.
gave them is
Yeah.
Battlefront 2015. Completely polar opposites for us. And I guess
But
now the point is,
it's weird though, because we kind of agreed pretty much throughout everything.
in a way, yes, but not because I look at this and I go, I didn't really enjoy a lot of this stuff. Like the Fallen Order game, and I would say games because I know Jedi Survivor is good. Yeah, those are great additions and all that, and it's cool to have them. But I wasn't satisfied with really either the Battlefronts, of course, enough to give them a thumbs up and look back on them really fondly. And Squadrons yet again, like when I look back at EA Star Wars, I only give two thumbs up, and that's because of the Jedi games. And I ask myself, would I rather keep those to have the 10 years of EA Star Wars, or would I rather give them up and go back in time and not have EA Star Wars? I'd give those fucking games up in a heartbeat. They're good, they're great. It's not KOTOR. It's not the original Battlefront game. It's not something you look at and you go, God, this was so damn good. I'm so happy that we did this 10-year deal. None of these games make me feel that way. So I think that's why our scores are kind of different, is because when I look back at a lot of this, I'm like, yeah, it happened. It wasn't good though. Whereas I think you look back at a lot of these games, and the difference is mostly like Battlefront 2, where you're like, no, I had a good time and I'm glad this happened. Whereas I'm like, I fucking if Battlefront 2 was never made, I'd be a happier person. Like at least the 2017 version. So it's different for both of us. So That's the question I think at the end of the day is when we look back at 10 years of EA Star Wars, was it good and was it worth it? I'm going to say no. I'm going to say this was not worth the 10 years of exclusivity that they got. What Star Wars has right now of multiple companies working on multiple Star Wars games is already a lot more exciting than anything that we've had under EA Star Wars. You know, Star Wars Outlaws is coming out, and some people are kind of like meh with that. And even me looking at the trailer and everything, I'm like, oh, looks fine. But let's say you don't like it. Okay, so what? It's not like Ubisoft is the only company you got to deal with now. Now I got what's the other one? Star Wars Eclipse coming out. So
When,
well,
literally
yeah, I'm
when.
just, but I'm just saying, as an example, there's something else from another company that's going to come out regardless. So, looking at EA Star Wars, was it good? Was it bad? I give that a big thumbs down. I think this was a waste of 10 years. I think the Star Wars video game space is worse off now than it was. Well, okay, I can't say now, because of all the new stuff that they're doing, but that's because of what they did with EA. So I do think they really set back the Star Wars video game experience and everything by doing this venture with EA, and I think it sucked. I mean, I really think we wasted 10 years, and I think that's the overall feeling. Because even Lucasfilm at the time said that they didn't openly say it, but sources said that they were unhappy with the amount of games that EA was putting out. EA didn't put out enough. They did not make this 10-year venture worth it. And they really didn't build up any trust with a lot of people. Respawn did, but EA didn't. So, I'm glad it's over. And I think this was a really sad 10 years. I think this really did not help the franchise at all. I think the video game market is surprisingly a big aspect of Star Wars and the franchise and the fandom. And I think EA Star Wars set Star Wars back. I really think they set the whole gaming aspect of the fandom and the franchise back by long ways. And any growth that we're going to see in the next 10 years is going to be crazy and it's going to be good and it's going to be huge. But it's also going to be heartbreaking because we could have had 20 years of that instead of 10 years of nothingness, of darkness with EA. So for you, looking back as someone who had you're giving more points to EA than you are taking away from them. How do you feel about the whole thing? Are you glad we did
Well,
this?
I can like more games than I dislike that they put out, but my overall consensus is pretty much the same as yours. It was a complete disaster and a disappointment. We don't even have time to talk about the amount of canceled games and stuff that they did and then the
Yeah,
creative
yeah.
issues behind the scenes.
All of that was way too much to even go into alone with Amy Henning, Visceral, and all that stuff. Like we would have had to add another hour into the show of all the complicated history of canceled shit that they have.
Yeah, and my consensus is the same as yours. Now, I don't have any problem with EA making Star Wars games. That's not the problem. The problem was how they made the games, how they went about it, and the fact that they were the only ones allowed in a 10-year period, an entire decade allowed to make games. And we got a game, what would that divide out to? Every 2 years. And one of those games was a very minuscule game that barely anyone played because it was just tiny. That
Yeah.
is wrong. Star Wars deserves better. It doesn't help that Star Wars I still say is in a horrible spot, right? The movies were hated. The fandom was divisive. And we didn't even have the games to come together on, except for when Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor came out, which I do give them a lot of props for, but it's almost too little too late, right? That's
Well,
not
and
enough.
also with
Same
those
thing.
games, they're single player, right? So it doesn't like unite the
There's
community like a Battlefront game would be where, oh, we're all Star Wars fans. Let's all play this game together. You don't get that
Yeah,
with
and then
Fallen
I was going
Order.
to bring up Battlefront. That game was also too little, too late, and I say that as someone who had a very successful channel around Battlefront and had the whole community was very tight. Like everyone knew each other in the community. Um, but it was a dedicated community. It didn't get that general audience reception like it needed. And a Battlefront game is that game that you need going on continuously throughout many, many years, right? And meanwhile, you still have these single player games throughout. That's what Battlefront should be. That's what they should have done with Battlefront, but they didn't because of all the reasons we know. So am I against EA making video games? No. Am I against the idea of them having exclusivity? Absolutely. But I want to bring up real quick. I am seeing similar patterns to that of which we've had with EA when it comes to the future games. We talk about how we're excited for the future of Star Wars games, but let me ask you only why. Why are you excited? Star Wars Outlaws looks fine and it has potential. Star Wars Eclipse is not going to happen for years. What else is there to be excited about? Jedi 3, I would say, But what else is there to be excited about?
Well, didn't they say that there's a single player Star Wars shooter that's going to be coming out soon? Like,
Respawn, not Respawn.
yeah, I thought it was
Is
Respawn.
it Ubisoft is making an open world game.
Yeah, and I thought
Yeah.
Respawn is, of course, making the third Fallen Order game, but they're also making a Star Wars shooter or something like that, or maybe EA Motive is
Yeah.
doing that. But you know, I understand that there's the Ubisoft open world game. Well, that's Outlaws, and that looks fine. And then Eclipse is not going to happen for a good time, but still, it's a better place
It's
because
more
it's
optimistic now
opportunities.
than if
Yeah,
EA got
yeah.
another 10-year deal. I agree with
Well,
that.
yeah, but
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 I'm
but it's just
still
it's
looking at this.
optimism.
This is still Lucasfilm and Disney. And it's kind of weird whether it's their fault or not. The same things that are happening with the movies have happened with the video games, right? Whether it's just complete issues with the games themselves compared to complete issues with the movies themselves, compared to starting games and then canceling games and starting movies and canceling
Yeah,
movies time
yeah,
and time
but
again.
it's a little different because Lucasfilm didn't decide to cancel any of the games like they did
Well,
with the
that's what I'm saying. It's
movies.
not their fault, but it's still happening. And
They,
so it
well,
just kind of
and they did have an
boils
influence
down to
because
that.
a lot of the EA people were saying that it is hard working with Lucasfilm, especially for like the game like Ragtag, or like talking about the character with his blaster of like we have to adhere to a lot of Star Wars rules, and it takes a long time to communicate this stuff with Lucasfilm and get approval. So yeah, I'm sure Lucasfilm adds a burden
Well,
to whoever they're
I will
working with.
say back to Battlefront 2, I knew this. It was very, very tough working with Lucasfilm from the small Battlefront team. There was this meme going around of waiting on approvals, and it wasn't even a meme, it was the truth. Everything had to go through this random team at Lucasfilm who were not even that wasn't even their job. It was just a side part of their job is approving stuff for Battlefront 2. And so
Yeah,
that's another reason why things kept getting delayed is because of that. But I will say now we have Lucasfilm games, right? Which really
yeah.
reminds me of Lucas Arts in a sense. How do you feel about Lucasfilm games?
I was happy when they announced it. It's good to have a dedicated team of people who are dealing with the games, especially now that we have so many other companies working on Star Wars. Lucasfilm Games is now going to be working with all of them in some capacity. So any of the issues that we had with the EA Star Wars needing approval from Lucasfilm, and the time that it took to get approval for a lot of things or just get any communication done, that's kind of null and void now because Lucasfilm Games is going to be taking care of that in a large capacity. So it seems like Lucasfilm really learned from the EA deal of what was good and what was bad and how to help things go better. And I think doing what we're doing now is the right idea. And I'm happy with what we have with the future of Star Wars games. I'm happy that there's going to be a land of opportunity with Star Wars as a franchise for these developers and publishers to come in and work on Star Wars, say what they want to say with the Star Wars franchise. I mean, oh, and that's another game we forgot about, the KOTOR remake. I mean, that might not come and it might not be the same thing, but that's another thing that they announced that was a big deal.
Yeah,
Like,
Aspire is taking
yeah,
it, isn't he?
there's a
Or
lot
no,
of
no, they were originally making it. Someone else took over, I think.
yeah. I don't know. I don't give a fuck.
I don't know.
It's just good that we have a future of the Star Wars games. Where with EA, it was a lot of uncertainty, and clearly after 10 years, they gave us 5 games. They gave us 2 Battlefronts, 2 Jedi games, and Squadrons. I would go on a hinge here and say that Squadrons and Battlefront One don't count as video games because they really weren't full games at all. So they really gave us like 3 games because Squadrons is like a
Yeah.
DLC for Battlefront Two, and Battlefront One is like a DLC for Battlefront Two. And then you got the Jedi games, but those also had no multiplayer. They were only single player story driven games with not a lot of other modes to do. So like all the games that they made were kind of small scale. They made a lot of money, but they really didn't do a lot for the franchise or the fandom or the gaming community or EA Star Wars. So I'm glad the deal's over. I'm glad we're moving on to a new chapter of Star Wars video games. And I think the reason the conversation around Star Wars video games is so dead and dry right now is because of what EA Star Wars did.
Yeah, I mean, most people don't even know that they no longer have exclusivity, and so it's going to take some time before things really start to change. I think the biggest thing that we will see on EA's end is well, now they have competitors. Now there's competition, right? That's not necessarily good for Lucasfilm because it's like if two Star Wars games are competing against each other, but that is good for both companies because they
Yeah.
need to make sure they're putting out a good game. They're not okay. We're the only Star Wars gaming company right now, so we can throw out whatever and they'll buy it. It's not going to work that way. And that's a good thing to come from this whole branch out.
Absolutely. Before we wrap up the show, I'll get to the super chat by our boy Grievous Reborn. Thank you for watching the entire stream, brother. He says that Disney killed some games when they bought Lucasfilm. And that's true because when Disney bought Lucasfilm, a big question on Disney's part was, do we continue with 1313? And Star Wars First Assault, I believe is what it was called, it was meant to be like Battlefield and Call of Duty for Star Wars, and that was near completion. I mean, I think they were almost 90% done with that game, and they canceled it. And then same with the Darth Maul and video game.
Mm.
So there was like 3 Star Wars games that could have come out, but because LucasArts was being shut down for various reasons, and Disney was going to do the deal with EA, they went away. And I do wonder in alternate history how different things would be if those 3 games did come out, because I do think that they would have been received fairly well. I think it just would have set up a better future for Star Wars video games than doing an exclusivity deal with something like EA. So that is an interesting thing to look back on. Any parting words for EA Star Wars? You know, at the end of the day, do you give them a thumbs up or a thumbs down?
Just because of the way they handled everything, it's a thumbs down for me. Like I
Thumbs
said,
down as well.
I might like things that they've done, and I have a lot of nostalgia and a lot of, you know, I'm very grateful for Battlefront 2 and how it, I mean, literally kind of changed my life. I mean, so I have to give that props. So that's not EA. That's DICE, right? That's not EA. EA gets a thumbs down. No.
Yeah, thumbs down for me. It was not a good time, and I'm glad that bad time has come to an end. So yeah, that's all we got for today's episode. Thank you guys for tuning in for our conversation on EA Star Wars. If you're still watching, please leave a like on the stream. Comment below what you guys want us to do in a future episode. Definitely tune in next week. Oh crap, I can't even remember what next week's topic is about. I don't even have my phone on me, I don't think.
Is it Tales of the Jedi?
Is it Tales of the Jedi? It might be. Where the fuck did I put my phone? It's around here somewhere.
Don't you have the calendar?
Oh, you're right. I do. I have it on the thingy with Jake. Thank you very much. Sorry, boomer moment again. This isn't updated. So yeah, today was the 10 years. So yes, next week is the Tales of the Jedi review, November 22nd. We're going to do the Legacy of Star Wars anthology films on the 29th. And on December 8th, we're doing the Chosen One Prophecy. I'm going to update the calendar next week on the next show. So yeah, be sure to tune in next Wednesday night for that. Like I said, if you're watching still, please leave a like. If you're watching this on the Star Wars only live stream, please do us a favor and subscribe on over to Chatooine. We will not keep streaming on here in the near future. So thank you guys for tuning in. It was a great stream. Make sure to follow us all on the social medias, TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. And we're kind of becoming active on Discord. I need to join our own Discord. I haven't done that yet. But yeah, we'll see you all next week. Thank you guys for tuning in, and may the Force be with you always.